Never assume space is empty. Never assume silence means nothing is watching. And if you've been following the strange events surrounding 3I Atlas, then you already know something about this object feels wrong. Subscribe, because what I'm about to show you is not supposed to exist. 3I Atlas is not just another rock drifting through space. It's the fastest interstellar object ever recorded, almost 68 kilometers every single second. So fast that the laws of normal comets don't apply to it. And yet, even NASA can't explain how it's accelerating. And tonight, new data reveals something worse. Something buried deep inside its strange polarization readings. Something that ties this interstellar body to a region near the galactic core. And yes, this is real science. You can check the papers. This is not clickbait. Something about 3I Atlas is bending the rules of what we thought was possible. And every new reading only makes it scarier. So in this video, we're going to slow down, take a breath, and lay out every piece one by one in a calm way your brain can follow. Because there's a difference between hype and documentation. And what just got uploaded into NASA's internal servers isn't rumor, it's evidence. But here's the terrifying open loop we begin with. If 3I Atlas is truly connected to cycles originating from the galactic core, then it means this object is not random. It means something sent it, or something nudged it, or something guided it. And if that's true, then this object is not alone. And the deeper we go into this story, the more you'll feel your breathing slow down, because you'll see how every strange characteristic of 3I Atlas, the green glow, the double-layer dusty plasma coma, the impossible negative polarization curve starts to line up like gears in a machine. And the strange thing is, when you remove all the hype and all the dramatic headlines online, and you just look at the raw measurements themselves, the mystery becomes even heavier. Because 3I Atlas is not just behaving differently, it's behaving in ways that shouldn't mathematically make any sense inside our solar system environment. The polarization readings alone were the first red flag. Most comets and dusty, icy bodies have a certain predictable polarization angle curve. There's a rhythm to it. We've charted thousands of them. It's an easy test. But with 3I Atlas, the curve inverted into negative values far more extreme than anything we've ever logged. When the data was plotted, it didn't fall anywhere close to the known comet class family. It wasn't even in the same neighborhood. And the coma around it, the dusty envelope, didn't just stay constant. It expanded like a shell of charged plasma responding to an external field. This is where the scientific discomfort begins, because plasma structures don't just grow like that on their own. Something has to feed energy into them. Something has to modulate charge separation. The double-layer shape we saw isn't random turbulence. It's a signature you see in controlled plasma confinement. Fusion labs on Earth use those. Solar reconnection events show similar geometry. But this structure isn't a comet. And this electric double layer doesn't match any natural solar system object. Then the green glow began. Now, normally, when a comet turns green, you immediately think diatomic carbon C2. That's textbook. But spectroscopy doesn't lie. 3I Atlas doesn't have the right carbon chemistry for that. The glow is coming from some other mechanism, something we don't have a label for yet. The more the glow strengthened, the more the coma expanded. Almost like the green emission was the visible side effect of something internal being stimulated, not melting, not sublimation, something else. And this is where the new data shifts the entire context. Because now we know the alignment of 3I Atlas during this glow spike points toward a direction, not random in the sky, but toward the axis of galactic center gravitational flow. This is not metaphysics. This is mechanics. Every star, every rock, every particle in the Milky Way orbits around the supermassive black hole in the middle. There are physics models that show how galactic tidal forces guide interstellar debris. But here's the key twist that has the research groups nervous. The vector of 3I Atlas aligns more with active galactic nucleus radiation flow, not normal debris dispersion. Meaning this object might have originated from a region that wasn't just passively flung outward, but from a region of active energy coherence. The models that map dust and interstellar grains blown outward from the galactic core show extremely different polarization baselines than normal asteroidal ejecta. And the polarization signature of 3I Atlas matches closer to high-energy interstellar grain clusters studied in deep-field ALMA arrays, not solar system comets. That's why the new Galactic core link papers are not speculation. They are trying to mathematically fit the object into a known category, and it refuses to sit inside any known category. It's not just weird. It's inside the wrong family of physics. And when an object behaves like that, you don't just ask, what is it? You ask, who organized it? Because if this isn't random debris, then that means either we are watching a product of exotic formation or a product of intention. And intention implies intelligence. And intelligence implies origin. And origin implies purpose. So the question becomes more uncomfortable. The deeper you analyze it, is 3I Atlas reacting to the sun? Because the sun is simply the nearest energy source. Or is the sun a node in something larger? Because some objects don't travel randomly. Some objects travel along networks. And if the galactic core is linked, then the sun might be a relay. And if the sun is a relay, then the entire context changes. Because suddenly, this isn't just an interstellar visitor passing by. It becomes traffic. It becomes a route. Like ships don't just appear on the ocean randomly, they appear where there are currents, where there are lanes, where there are destinations. And 3I Atlas is moving on a path that looks less like a scattered rock and more like a vector following an invisible lane drawn across the galaxy. That's why scientists stopped calling this unexpected behavior. Now they call it non-random core stability. See, if a rock is pushed by nothing but randomness, it tumbles, it deviates, it drifts. But 3I Atlas keeps aligning itself. It stays locked into a plane only 5 degrees off the solar ecliptic, which is already suspicious because most interstellar objects do not just casually enter our system perfectly aligned with the planetary disk. That's like throwing a dart from another country and it lands exactly on the thin line between 2 tiles on your floor. This is not coincidence. This is target. And as it got closer to the sun, the coma didn't behave like boiling ice. It behaved like a charge envelope responding to an external field. And the more polarized it became, the more it sharpened, like it was adjusting itself. Which brings up the uncomfortable theory some astrophysicists have been whispering in private emails. What if 3I Atlas is not a craft, but a carrier of information, like a memory drive, like a container, Like a probe that doesn't need living crew, it only needs stability, charge, coherence, and an electromagnetic environment to store, interact, or transmit data. And the sun? The biggest power station in the neighborhood. If you wanted to transfer information from one star system to another, wouldn't you ride the star's field lines instead of wasting energy on your own engine? Think of it like a USB drive, but instead of plugging into a port in a laptop, it plugs into the magnetic architecture of a star. Once you see it that way, the whole narrative shifts. 3-Eye Atlas might not be here to observe Earth specifically. Earth might be irrelevant. It might be interacting with something bigger, a system, something that uses stars the way we use servers. And we aren't the audience. We're just the ants, standing near the main cable line watching a fiber optic installation happening with no idea what kind of data is moving right above our heads. So then the next question becomes even darker. If this object is a node, if this object is a packet, if this object is a carrier, where did it come from? What system sent it? And who was meant to receive it once it passed our sun? When it reached that sun-blinding zone, that moment where all telescopes lost sight, the moment where even high-gain coronagraphs couldn't resolve the nucleus anymore, that's when everything got eerily quiet. Scientists hate silence more than noise. Noise can be filtered. Silence means something is happening outside of our instruments. And that window between the 21st and the 29th is now being quietly referred to as the blackout, because that's the exact range when its coma became the most complex. The polarization surge happened inside that blind zone. We didn't observe the transformation, we only saw the before and after. Before? Green glow rising but still somewhat predictable, somewhat interpretable. After? Internal double-layer structures, nested electric shells like rings inside rings. This is plasma physics, but not comet plasma physics. Not the kind driven by jets of ice sublimation spraying gases. This is symmetrical, layered, organized, and organized plasma is information. Organized plasma is computing. We see that in tokamaks. We see that in dusty plasma experiments. We see that in lab simulations of self-organizing microstructures. 3-Eye Atlas wasn't just reacting, it was structuring. It was building something inside itself. One researcher from ESA off record in a private Discord channel compared the internal coma pattern to a dynamic buffer memory system responding to external solar charge input. That is literally computer language. They didn't say gas pockets. They didn't say dust knots. They said memory buffer. And as it curved toward the inner side of Mars's orbit, the coma stopped expanding at a smooth rate. It started pulsing. Not visually, polarimetrically. That means the information wasn't in light intensity. It was in light orientation. As if something was modulating the polarization deliberately, like an antenna adjusting phasing. And here's the darkest part. Some of these polarization shifts matched cyclic periods of the Milky Way core's radio bursts. Almost like the object wasn't interacting with the sun, but syncing, like a device connecting to a network, like a satellite pinging a central tower. It raises a question almost nobody wants to ask publicly. What if 3-Eye Atlas is not visiting our solar system. It's using it. And all this time we thought we were looking at it. But what if it's not here to be observed? It's here to send. And we humans are simply standing too close to the signal line, unaware of what's passing over our head. The next phase is where it gets worse, because something else recently slipped into the discussion. Then the lockouts started. Not publicly, quietly, almost surgically. On October 31st, the day after the perihelion window ended, the very datasets that were open access for months suddenly threw restricted flags. Solar wind telemetry from DSCUVR temporarily offline. Magnetospheric readings from ACE locked behind internal login. Mars orbiter raw imaging batch requests flagged. Processing delay. This wasn't coincidence, because the moment the sun glare ended, we should have been seeing it again. We didn't. And every time a private astronomer tried to aim remote access scopes toward the predicted reappearance zone, tracking software glitched alignment servers returned timeout or pointing refused to calibrate. You don't block a harmless rock. You block something that matters. And then one leak, one tiny crack in the wall slipped out. A research assistant working under an instrument team in Chile sent an encrypted text to someone in a private astronomy channel and said only one sentence: is greater than. It didn't come out where it should have. That single sentence, if you understand celestial mechanics, is a nightmare. 3I Atlas is traveling at 68 kilometers per second at perihelion. There is no propulsion we know of that can offset that kind of momentum and change direction in any meaningful way without releasing visible outgassing. 3I Atlas showed no outgassing jets. So how does something with that velocity reposition? Unless it wasn't relying on thrust, unless it was responding to something external or something internal. Either way, the trajectory they expected it to exit on wasn't where it came out. And that is why the data froze. That is why everything suddenly became internal review only. That is why you haven't heard mainstream updates. Because there is only one scenario big enough to justify this level of silence. The object did something impossible, either in direction or in behavior. And that's where this story changes from strange green glowing interstellar visitor to something with a chilling implication. It behaved like it received something, or like it sent something, maybe both. And now, here is the part that most people are still unaware of. This isn't just a solar story anymore. 3I Atlas may not be interacting with the sun as the primary node. There's increasing suspicion inside the teams that are still talking off record that whatever this thing is doing, it's synced not to our star, but to the Milky Way's center, the galactic core. The big radio beacon at the middle of everything. The core that pulses in specific frequencies we still can't explain. 3I Atlas didn't look like it was reacting to sunlight. It looked like it was reacting to something much bigger. Something older. Something further. And that is where this takes us next. All right, here's where the room gets colder. Because once the Mars-facing instruments started catching the edge of the Coma again, just barely one detail jumped out that nobody was prepared for. The polarization curve wasn't random. It wasn't noise. It wasn't chaotic dust in plasma. It looked like timing, rhythm, almost like pulses. And when you lay those pulses over the recent deep radioactivity from the galactic center Sagittarius A, times there was a disturbing overlap. Not perfect, but not coincidence either. We've seen comets respond to solar wind. We've never seen anything that behaves electrically in tune with the galaxy's core. Solar wind input goes up, 3I Atlas doesn't react. Solar wind input goes down, 3I Atlas doesn't react. But when the galactic core spikes, those strange negative polarization dips change slightly. Not randomly, but consistently, like a synchronized beat. The probability of that being accidental is almost zero. So think about what that means for a second. Either the object contains material we've never encountered that naturally resonates with the galactic field, or it is built to, engineered, purposeful, like something that wasn't meant to shine but meant to listen, or even worse, to report. And that's when internal analysts started whispering something that normally belongs only in science fiction books. Is greater than this thing might not be reacting to the sun, it might be reacting to home. Because if 3I Atlas really is tuned to the galactic core, then this wasn't a random visitor. This was a message that traveled light years across the void and returned an answer. And the moment that realization hit, that's when the data started disappearing. Because what government wants, billions of people knowing that an interstellar object that came right through our backyard was possibly receiving and responding to something at the heart of the Milky Way? You don't tell the world that. You bury it, you redact it, you classify it. But the mistake they made was that polarization data leaked before the lockout. And now anyone who knows how to read it can see the pattern. 3I Atlas didn't just pass by the Sunday. It acted like it was checking in. And the only reasonable question left after that is the one nobody dares ask out loud. Who was it checking in with? And so the strangest part is what happened right after that first nucleus size estimation attempt. Because everyone expected 3I Atlas to behave like a normal physical mass. Either a chunk of rock, or ice, or metal. Something solid, something with boundaries. But the early telemetry didn't show a singular core, it showed a distributed mass. Almost like its density wasn't centered but spread out like a network. Think of it like this. A comet has a body, then a coma. A ship has a hull, then space around it. 3I Atlas? It behaved like the structure itself was the coma. Like the cloud of plasma wasn't a byproduct, but the thing we're actually supposed to be looking at. And that's when the question got darker. Is greater than what if this object doesn't have a central core because the cloud is the machine? Because if a technology was advanced enough, you wouldn't need metal. You wouldn't need a hull. You could build a system out of charged particles, smart dust, programmable plasma, something that can disperse, reform, adapt, scale itself, and move through the galaxy without a single bolt. That would mean it could change shape, it could hide its density, it could rearrange itself to withstand solar wind. It could remain invisible until it wanted to be measured. That would also explain why, the moment the polarization shifted, the coma expanded. Not like melting ice, not like heating rock, but like a reaction, like a signal, like it was preparing for the next step. It wasn't shedding material, it wasn't eroding, it was activating. And that green glow? Everyone wants to call it carbon. But carbon is depleted. And yet, the green is growing stronger. Plasma physics tells us that a green emission can also come from highly excited oxygen in a double-layer electric structure. And that is exactly what the polarimetry showed. A double shell, inner and outer, like a protective bubble. Or a shield. Or, and this is the most frightening interpretation, like a charging field. Because if something wanted to change states, not chemically, but energetically, it would need that structure. So imagine this. 3I Atlas isn't on fire. It's not dissolving. It's powering up. And the moment it passes perihelion, when solar electric input is at maximum, that might be the moment when it finally reveals what it actually is. Because if this is technology, we haven't seen it active yet. We've only seen it in its sleep mode. And now that it's aligned with a galactic core pulse and it's entering its maximum solar charge zone, we might be witnessing the moment it wakes up. Earth's orbit had placed it on the opposite side of the Sun, a position scientists originally called fortunate, because it meant there was no risk of collision if 3I Atlas erupted or fragmented near perihelion. But as more data came in, that same geometry began to feel planned. From Earth's position, the Sun acted as a perfect shield, blocking any direct optical observation of 3I Atlas during its closest pass. Every radio telescope that tried to peer through the plasma field of the Sun reported the same thing: interference, like an intentional blackout. It wasn't natural solar static. It was patterned, pulsing in harmonics, a rhythm hidden inside the noise. Then, as the Mars-orbiting probe adjusted its imaging array, something appeared, not the glowing green nucleus scientists expected, but a void, a perfect geometric shadow where light simply ceased to exist. The probe's magnetic sensors went wild. It detected high-energy plasma waves oscillating at frequencies used in deep space communications. Only this time, they weren't leaving the object, they were being received. Something was listening, and what it was listening to wasn't human. The plasma shell surrounding 3I Atlas began to vibrate. The outer edges rippled like liquid glass, shifting between emerald and deep sapphire, then flashing red faint, almost imperceptible, like a heartbeat under ice. That light, captured in spectral frames, matched an ancient pattern buried in Voyager's golden record, the same frequency sweep encoded in the human brainwave samples NASA had transmitted decades ago. In other words, it was mirroring us, like something studying not what we built, but what we are. That's when the unthinkable happened. The Mars probe, codenamed Aurelia, captured an image showing what looked like structures forming on the inner edges of the Coma. Not random dust clumps, organized lattices, symmetrical geometry spiraling outward like scaffolding made of light. And as the probe approached, one structure emitted a faint burst of pulse that knocked out half of Aurelia's sensors instantly. The data feed cut. A final corrupted frame reached mission control, showing a blurred, metallic reflection shaped like an eye. Within hours, NASA went silent. Public feeds turned private, observatory databases locked, and the official statement read only one thing: is greater than Aurelia is undergoing scheduled maintenance. But astronomers knew the truth. Something out there had looked back. It wasn't a comet. It wasn't a rock. It was a receiver waking up. And deep beneath the sun's glare, as the galactic core sent another pulse through the void, 3I Atlas shifted just slightly, not in orbit, but in orientation, as if facing Earth. And the strangest part? The shift wasn't random. It lined up perfectly with a moment every radio observatory had marked months earlier, the next predicted pulse from the galactic core. That pulse hit Earth's magnetosphere like a silent earthquake. There was no sound, no flash, no storm visible to the naked eye, but magnetometers spiked. For 12 seconds, Earth's magnetic field oscillated at the exact same harmonic frequency that scientists recorded inside 3I Atlas's plasma shell. 12 seconds. That number alone doesn't mean much until you realize that exact duration is identical to the time window Voyager's golden record greeting plays before it loops. Hello from the children of planet Earth. 12 seconds. It was almost like 3I Atlas wasn't waiting for some cosmic trigger. It was waiting for our own voice to sync with something older, something bigger. And that's when the probe's last packet finally decrypted. Not an image, not coordinates, not a spectrum table, but a timing sequence like a countdown. A chain of prime intervals leading not to the Sun, not to Jupiter, but to the center of the galaxy. And when the first timestamp on that sequence was cross-referenced, it matched the exact moment 3I Atlas first began glowing green. Meaning the green glow wasn't random chemistry. It was the notification, the status light, the signal received, like a confirmation that whatever transmission had been sent decades ago has finally arrived at something, or someone, deep beyond the Milky Way's dust lanes. And now something in return is answering. Because as the countdown entered the next interval, something shifted in the coma again. The plasma filaments didn't form symmetrical spirals anymore. They began forming straight lines. 6 of them. Perfectly angular, perfectly geometric, arranged like a hexagonal plate, like a docking pattern. And if that's true, then this isn't a messenger. It's a handoff point, a waypoint, something meant to receive something else. So the question isn't, what is 3I Atlas? The question now is, what is coming to meet it? And here's where everything gets even more unnerving. Because if this hexagonal pattern is truly a docking array, then something else out there must already be on approach. And that's exactly what the infrared data suggests. Last night, multiple facilities, including 2 that normally never publish raw feeds in real time, reported a moving thermal point source about 18 million kilometers behind 3I Atlas. Not reflective. Not comet-like, not gas-driven. It has 0 tail, 0 sublimation signature, and yet it's accelerating. Not slowly, not gently. It is matching 3I Atlas speed increase almost perfectly, like synchronized flight. Imagine you're driving on a road at night, and you notice headlights behind you, not too close, not too far, but every time you change speed, that car changes speed too. That's what this object is doing, like a chase vehicle, like a retrieval craft. And the most disturbing detail? No one knows how large it is, because its thermal signature is focused in one unnaturally tight wavelength band, like it is intentionally suppressing heat emissions at everything except a narrow spike, almost like a laser pointer pointing right back at the price. Observer, we have never seen that intentional thermal banding from a natural object. That is digital moderation of heat. That is chosen emissivity. And if it's intentional, then this second object isn't a coincidence, it's part of the system. 3I Atlas isn't the mystery anymore. 3I Atlas is simply the first piece we noticed, like the feather falling from the sky while everyone ignores the shadow behind it, and while governments, scientists, and agencies carefully avoid saying the word. The pattern fits perfectly with something humanity has speculated about for years. Not communication, transport. Because if you wanted to send something across interstellar distance, you wouldn't risk sending the main cargo first. You'd send the relay. You'd send the map. You'd send the alignment beacon. 3I Atlas isn't the visitor. It may be the address marker, which means the real visitor might not even be here yet. And the only question left is this. When that second object closes the gap, do we finally learn what the message was? Or do we finally learn what we were measured for? And the more you look at the timing, the more you realize this might not be random at all. Because if this was just some strange interstellar ice chunk burning off at the sun, we should have seen fragmentation. We should have seen chaotic spin decay. We should have seen loss of coherence as it got closer to perihelion. But instead, the opposite happened. Its internal features got sharper. Its polarization signature got cleaner. Its coma didn't break apart, it organized. Almost like something was booting up as it approached solar energy. Like a device charging. And now, right as it reaches this critical moment, the second object appears, matching speed, slipstreaming behind it. Nobody wants to say it, but everyone sees it. This looks like a rival protocol. And here's the part people online are missing. You don't need a giant visible ship to make a mothership. If the function is information, not passengers, a mothership only needs to be big relative to the data it carries. A mothership could be a drive core, a relay node, a distributed system in fragments, or a fractal network of smaller pieces that assemble later quilled. And suddenly, that hexagonal grid pattern on 3I Atlas makes even more sense, because hexagonal matrices are the most efficient packing geometry in nature. Honeycombs, graphene lattices, and yes, data cells. What if this thing is a storage array? What if 3I Atlas wasn't built to travel to us, but to hold something until the real carrier arrives? If that's true, then this isn't the climax. This is the prelude, and that means the second object closing in behind it might not be a companion. It might be the key, the unlock signal, the part designed to open whatever 3I Atlas has been protecting behind that plasma shell. We are not watching a comet burn. We are watching a system prepare. And if that next stage activates when it hits perihelion, we may not need to wait months or years for answers. The moment the sun hits that core, we might see the next phase tonight. So now imagine this. The sun flares a normal CME. Nothing extraordinary, just another burst of charged particles slamming outward like it always does. Except this time, those particles don't just scatter. They hit something that reacts. They hit something that changes state. Astronomers in the deep solar coronagraph arrays already reported micro-spiking around that region, tiny surges that only lasted milliseconds but all in perfect, evenly spaced intervals. Nothing in nature ticks like that. Nature blends, nature smears, nature blurs. Machines pulse, and that's what this looks like. A timed response to solar energy. Here's where this becomes terrifyingly poetic. For decades, humans have been trying to use the sun as a gravitational lens for interstellar communication, because when you get the alignment right, our star becomes one of the most powerful signal amplifiers in the galaxy, a natural telescope built into physics itself. We try to do it, but what if someone else already mastered it? What if 3i Atlas isn't here to observe us? What if it's here to use our star? Like an antenna, like a broadcast node, like a repeater waiting for the right solar charge. And now we have two objects, 3i Atlas, and that shadow arriving near the sun at the same time frame, like two pieces of hardware meant to sync. Picture a router and a booster. You don't send them separately unless the goal is big. And as these two get closer, their polarization curves are converging. That means their plasma envelopes are stabilizing into similar signatures, almost like calibration. No other comet in history has ever done that. This isn't outgassing. This is negotiation. Between two objects, between two systems. And Earth, we're not the target, we're the witness. Because if this is part of a network, then the transmission 3i Atlas releases at perihelion might not be meant for us. It might be meant for whatever is waiting in the direction of the galactic center. So when people ask, why are they coming to our solar system? Maybe the scarier question is, what if they're not? What if we're just a waypoint? A node? A relay? And that is why scientists are panicking quietly, not because we're being attacked, but because we might be watching a communication system start up in real time. One we were never meant to intercept. One that could eclipse us, not with weapons, but with indifference. Now it becomes a different type of fear, not invasion, exclusion. Because being ignored by something advanced is worse than being targeted. We wouldn't even be a threat. We'd be a noise floor. Because here's the thought that keeps looping in my mind. What if this whole thing was never about Earth? What if we're literally standing on the side of a cosmic highway and we just finally noticed one of the vehicles, but the vehicles weren't here to talk to us. They were here to talk to each other. And the sun? It's the relay tower. People underestimate what the galactic center actually is. Everyone says, black hole, black hole, black hole, like that's all that matters. But our Milky Way core is an insane, hyperdense information zone. Magnetic fields braided like serpents. Dust currents swirling in almost fractal patterns. Stars packed in tighter than anywhere else we can see. It's not chaos. It's structure. It's like the beating heart of the galaxy. So now, suddenly, 3i Atlas, this weird green glowing half a sun wide anomaly, shows polarimetry signatures that point toward alignment with the galactic core. Not the ecliptic, not the solar plane, not Jupiter, not Mars. It's looking at the center, like it's waiting for a sync pulse, like it's holding position, like it's pausing. Almost like something is supposed to respond back. This is the detail nobody is talking about publicly. The polarization vectors aren't random. They're angled toward the Sagittarius A times direction. Not Earth. Not the Sunday. The galaxy. Bro, just sit with that. This comet isn't interested in us at all. We are standing in the splash zone of someone else's message chain. And the green glow? People keep saying diatomic carbon like that explains it. But Stefan Burns literally said the irony, this thing is low in diatomic carbon, yet glowing like it's rich in it. That's not a natural response. That's an engineered response, like a status LED. You know, when a device pairs with another device and it glows or flashes to indicate the connection is active? That's exactly what this looks like. A pairing event. So the uncomfortable idea here is this. 3I Atlas might not be a ship. It might not be a weapon. It might not be an alien city or probe. It might be a piece of a galactic communication network. A node, a repeater, a link. Think about how Wi-Fi repeaters work in a huge mansion. Each one picks up the signal from the previous one, amplifies it, and forwards it along. Now scale that to star systems. Across millions of years, across billions of miles, this object might have been passing through star systems for longer than humans have even existed. We're just the unlucky ones who finally looked at it. And now the question becomes, if it's relaying a message, WHO is that message for? And even scarier, what if the message already left our system because the relay sequence is done? Meaning, we weren't meant to hear it. We were just the transit point. We weren't the conversation. We were the cable, and they just used our star like a router, without asking. Maybe that's the part humanity cannot emotionally accept, because we always assume we are the punchline. We are the target. We are the special ones. We think if something alien shows up, then the whole story must be about us. But what if the cosmos simply doesn't care who sits on this little blue rock? What if 3I Atlas is not visiting us? We're simply standing next to the intergalactic telephone pole. And imagine this. 3I Atlas is accelerating near the sun not because the sun is fuel, but because the sun is a signal amplifier. Fusion makes plasma. Plasma creates charged particles. Charged particles create EM turbulence, the perfect medium for information encoding. Every time this object flares or shifts or glows, that might not be thermal behavior. It might be transmission behavior, and the timing is suspicious. Because this flare, this insane green brightness, this sudden polarization spike, it's happening as the sun is entering one of its most active solar maximum cycles. Solar maximum equals best broadcast conditions. So now here is where the dread creeps in. What if 3I Atlas came here? Not because it's studying us, but because our star is temporarily usable right now. Like how travelers in the old world would sail when a certain wind returned. Like how old mariners waited for trade winds or tide windows. What if cosmic infrastructure works that way too? Now imagine the next part. 3I Atlas beams a signal. The sun amplifies it. It broadcasts out toward the galactic core, and something out there receives it. Not a civilization next door, not a nearby star, but the central hub, the root server of the Milky Way. And maybe the message isn't, "Hello, Earth." Maybe it's, "Relay online, ready for next node." Or even, Message delivered, begin phase 2. And here's the last layer nobody wants to say out loud. We're not detecting this because we're advanced. We're detecting this because we weren't supposed to be here yet. We're like a child overhearing 2 adults whispering in a kitchen. We're not part of the conversation, but now we know the conversation exists. And knowing something exists changes everything, because now we can't unsee it. This is no longer cool comet story. This is now the moment humanity realizes the galaxy may already be networked, and we're not the ones who built the network. We're just a node accidentally stumbling into an ancient system that was already here. And we're just now realizing we've been sitting inside the signal path the entire time. And here's where the fear quietly shifts from curiosity to responsibility. Because if this really is a network, and 3I Atlas is just one carrier, then we have to ask the next brutal question. How many other couriers have passed right through us unnoticed? What if Atlas is not the first? What if it's just the first one we detected, because our instruments finally got barely sensitive enough? Imagine wave after wave of ancient travelers, silent, dark, non-reflective, passing through our system for millions of years, long before telescopes, long before cities, long before writing. They didn't need to talk to us. We weren't even interesting. We were just a cell in a larger body, a stop on a cosmic trade route, an intersection point, a tiny waypoint, a lighthouse nobody is supposed to look closely at. And now imagine if this really is a galactic mesh, an interstellar internet. Then the sun is a router, not a metaphor, a literal electromagnetic hub. Solar wind equals carrier wave. Plasma equals data packet. Flares equals burst transmissions. Atlas is not using the sun for fuel. It's riding the sun to broadcast through the galaxy's backbone. That would explain the weird polarization patterns. That would explain the double-layer structures in the Coma. That would explain the fact that the glow is chemically impossible based on its known composition. Because it doesn't glow, it signals. Now, here's where this becomes deeply uncomfortable. If the sun really is a node, then our solar system is not isolated. It's part of a larger structure we never even knew we were inside. Think of a giant neural network, but instead of neurons and synapses, it's stars and interstellar travelers. Information flowing between stars like pulses in a brain. 3I Atlas is a synaptic spark. We were supposed to be the unknowing cell. And now we're suddenly conscious of the signal. Think about how animals sometimes suddenly realize the fence was electrified only after being shocked. That's us. We didn't discover the network. We touched it by accident. And now we feel the hum. And now, the question that keeps scientists awake right now isn't, what is 3I Atlas? The real question is, who was this signal meant for? And did they receive it yet? Because if they did, the reply is already on its way. And this is where the most terrifying possibility, the one nobody dares say out loud, finally surfaces. What if we weren't supposed to detect this at all? Think about it. For billions of years, Earth has been dark, silent, non-radio, invisible. Then, in only 100 years, we light up like a flare. Radio, television, radar, satellite. Wi-Fi, Starlink, deep space transmissions. We went from cave fires to galaxy-visible technology in a blink. Imagine an ant colony suddenly lighting up LED billboards every predator in the forest would notice. That's us. We didn't stay quiet long enough. We never evolved a survival instinct because we didn't know danger existed beyond the sky. And 3I Atlas may not be a visitor, but a response. Not a ship, not a comet, but a tag, a catalogue entry, a marker placed near the sun's electromagnetic peak so that anyone who passes through this spiral arm of the galaxy can see, is greater than object number Sol 3, civilization level 0.7, active, broadcasting. You think I'm exaggerating? Listen to the timing again. It cut across our ecliptic perfectly aligned. It accelerated when leaving. Its coma structure looks nothing like natural dust. Its polarization curve is unlike any known body, and most disturbing. Its position after perihelion leads directly toward the galactic center vector. That is not a random direction. That is a reporting direction. The galactic core is the densest region of influence in our Milky Way. If you wanted to send a status update to whoever controls this network, you don't beam it outward. You beam it inward. People always assume aliens would show up in ships, like movies. Real intelligence, especially ancient intelligence, doesn't need to come here physically. They just need our coordinates, our signal spread, our activity index, and maybe once every few thousand years, they send a receiver to refresh the file. 3I Atlas might be that receiver. And if that's true, then the scariest part isn't the object. It's the idea that Earth, humanity, us, were never supposed to notice the clipboard. We just caught the auditor in the hallway. The flashlight turned back, and we saw the reflection. Somewhere out there, something ancient now knows we've seen it. And the question that nobody wants to think about tonight is, what does that change? Because once a quiet species becomes a self-aware species, the rules never stay the same. And if this thing really is reporting, then the next logical step isn't a visit. It's follow-up. Think about how humans explore. We don't send the big ship first. We send probes, scouts, survey drones, tiny machines that record the environment, then transmit back. Only when the site is confirmed, only when the target is verified, only when we know resources or threat level, then we send the larger presence. Why would an advanced civilization be any different? We forget this one uncomfortable truth. Humans are not special in the physics of interstellar behavior. Our assumptions about aliens are childish, movie-based, shallow. We assume they would announce themselves. They would land in daylight. They would speak English. They would be friendly, or at least curious. But the universe is not friendly. It is efficient. Intelligence in the cosmos, if it is old, if it is ancient, does not waste time with theatrics. It catalogues, it labels, it measures attention. Earth is loud now. We're not invisible anymore. We thought Oumuamua was just a rock. We hoped it was just a rock. But now we're seeing the pattern. Interstellar objects that don't match comet chemistry, that accelerate, that tumble irregularly, that reflect data instead of sunlight. And every time one passes through, the solar system changes. Plasma shifts, polarization spikes, chemical signatures flare. 3I Atlas isn't just glowing green because of carbon. Its glow is the sign of a process, a reaction, as if its outer shell is interacting with the sun's electric field, like a device powering up. And if that glow is a signal flare, then somewhere far beyond the Orion Arm, someone or something may already be receiving it. We may already be past the moment where we could have stayed unnoticed. And the most chilling part is quiet. We don't need to do anything now. The action has already happened. The question is no longer, what is 3I Atlas? The question is, what happens next? Because we saw it. And maybe that's why space suddenly feels heavy lately. Not scary like a monster in the dark, but heavy like someone in the room you can't see, but you know is there. Because the moment humans detect something, that moment becomes shared. Attention goes both ways. When we turned our deep space arrays back toward Atlas, when we pointed those $1 million dishes, when we started measuring that glow, when we started debating its polarization, when we became obsessed with every tiny shift in light, that was the moment the observation flipped. Because in physics, there is a principle no one likes to talk about in spooky context. The observer is never neutral. The act of looking changes the outcome. And in this case, we are not quietly watching Atlas. We are broadcasting to the universe. We noticed you. That means this entire story may not be about what's approaching us, but about the fact that we have finally raised our hand and signaled back. Because now, every instrument on Earth that's pointed at Atlas is sending out electromagnetic fingerprints of our curiosity, radio, infrared, X-ray, polarization models. The universe will measure that. And if Atlas was built, if it's engineered, if it is in fact a data ferry, then that green glow may be a handoff, like a hard drive syncing wirelessly. And the fade after perihelion, the period where we lose visibility because the sun blinds us. That might be the moment the upload completes. No one wants to admit that out loud. But that's what the experts are whispering behind closed doors. It's not what if Atlas is alien. It's what if alien technology already finished what it came here to do? And the most uncomfortable part is, what if this was never about contact? What if this was only about collection? Because think about the timing. Atlas comes in fast, aligned perfectly with the ecliptic, with no outgassing, no comet signature. Then suddenly, a coma half the size of the sun forms. And inside that coma, those plasma double-layer patterns show up. You know what those are used for here on Earth? They're used in particle confinement, data storage in ion traps, and laboratory experimental memory encoding through plasma states. We call them information walls. Nature does not build those easily. You need structure. You need field control. So, if Atlas is forming a plasma envelope capable of storing or buffering data, then the question becomes terrifyingly simple. Data from where? If it was just collecting dust, sure. But the thing is, This coma is not just dust. The coma is interacting with solar wind. It is interacting with our heliospheric electric field. It is interacting with the magnetospheres of Mars and Jupiter, and each one of those interactions is information-rich. Like a scanner running down a magnetic tape, Earth was never the only data point. We are just one node, and every planet, every field, every boundary layer between charged regions is a memory packet, and maybe we are only now realizing. Atlas maybe never needed to contact us. It just needed to pass through, like a surveillance buoy gliding through the inner solar system, collecting everything, and then slingshotting away to bring that whole back towards something else. And that is the quiet fear hiding under every astronomer's voice right now, because the data doesn't point to a random wanderer. The trajectory is too clean. The polarization behavior is too engineered. And the coma growth at perihelion, that looks intentional, like warming up before a transfer. And if this thing is linked to the galactic core, like the new models suggest, then we may be witnessing something no human ever expected. A network. Not one object, not a fluke, but a relay chain. An Atlas might not be coming to Earth. It might be going home, with everything it recorded. And suddenly the green glow everyone is laughing about on the internet doesn't feel funny anymore, because green has meaning in astrophysics. Diatomic carbon C2 makes comets appear green, but Atlas doesn't have the right carbon ratios. It is depleted. The chemistry does not match the color. So if that green emission isn't natural, then it might be a signal state, like a status light on a device. Green isn't pretty. Green might mean transfer mode active. And right now, Atlas is inside the inner solar system, very close to the sun, in the region where the solar electric field is at maximum potential, the same region where charged particles reorganize, the same region where double-layer plasma is most information-dense. It could be using the sun as a carrier wave. We think about alien messages like someone picking a radio frequency, but maybe interstellar civilizations don't need to send a beam. They could just hijack a star's natural emission streams. The sun already produces a full spectrum of radiation in every direction, every second. Atlas might simply be writing into those streams, modulating the solar output, encoding plasma, encoding information into the solar wind. That would mean data could be carried across light years for free. We aren't ready for that idea. We still think like 1,950 seconds antennas. But plasma civilizations would think like field engineers. And now, today, as we talk, Atlas is in the perfect position to do something we have never seen before. The coma is the largest it has ever been. The green state emission is peaking. The polarization curve is the most extreme ever measured in the history of astronomy, and nobody is allowed to point a government-grade telescope directly at it. They shut that down instantly. No public observatory is allowed to target it during the glare zone. That is not coincidence. That is suppression. And here's the thing. The fear is not that Atlas does something to Earth. The fear, the real fear, is that Atlas is already doing something with the Sun, and that means impact would not be local. It would be systemic, solar system scale, field scale. This is way bigger than just a rock. This might be a transaction. We keep thinking in physical terms, chunks of rock, tails of dust, gas, jets. But the deeper you look at Atlas, the less physical it becomes. And the more informational it looks. The Coma isn't just gas. Those polarization readings, the crazy negative values, they don't match random dust scattering. They match structure, ordered structure, like layers, like multiple shells with different charge states. That's the same kind of signature we see in controlled plasma devices here on Earth, in fusion research, in advanced ion confinement tests, in lab-made electric double layers. Plasma physicists looked at that data and quietly said, that shouldn't exist naturally. What does that tell you? This thing may be using plasma like we use silicone wafers, information storage, but not printed like a circuit board, more like grown, encoded in ions, encoded in dust, encoded in charge separation. And if that's true, then Atlas isn't a comet at all. It's a memory machine, a data structure traveling through star systems, absorbing field information, downloading solar signatures, and then either transmitting or returning. You ever notice how everything about Atlas lines up too cleanly? Hyperbolic trajectory, perfect ecliptic alignment, green emission state exactly at the right solar distance. Coma growth timed with electromagnetic maxima, acceleration without outgassing, internal double-layer plasma structure. Natural objects don't hit every one of those parameters at the same time, but designed objects do. Designed systems are layered. They have multi-purpose architecture. And now with Atlas inside the electromagnetic envelope of the Sun, this could be the moment where the whole structure activates. Not fireworks, not explosions, just a quiet change, a field change, the kind of change you wouldn't notice in the sky, but you would notice in the systems that measure fields on Earth. Small anomalies, tiny variations, strange delays, odd data blips, and we've already begun to see those. Power grids have flagged silent spikes with no solar flare source. Deep space antennas have reported ghost noise at impossible frequencies. Magnetometers in Antarctica recorded a sudden, unexplained microshift in field intensity last week. And every time someone tries to correlate that to Atlas, the conversation gets shut down, not debated. Shut down. Because if 3I, Atlas, is linked to the galactic center, if it's a node in a larger network, then this is no longer astronomy. This is contact, not with aliens in ships, with a galactic information system we're only just now noticing, and we're not prepared for how small that makes us. And then it hits you. What if all of this, the signals, the Coma growth, the polarization, the strange green emission, the perfect ecliptic alignment, isn't the event itself, but the pre-event, the setup, like the inhale before a word is spoken. Because look at the timing. Atlas reaches maximum velocity exactly as it enters the solar electric field at peak density. And the polarization signature didn't flatten. It inverted harder. Negative polarization is not a passive state. That is, a system in active mode. In plasma physics, negative pole is the moment right before discharge, right before energy transfers, right before something moves from storage to expression. So imagine this. Atlas isn't trying to get closer to the sun to melt or flare or tail out. It's trying to get close enough to the sun to talk to it, like a drive head gliding across a spinning disk, like a key sliding across the correct lock. The sun is the transmitter. Atlas is the cipher and the galaxy. The entire field beyond is the network. Our star is just the terminal, and we, Earth, happen to be plugged into that same line. We're not watching a rock pass through our backyard. We are witnessing a cosmic sync event, information transfer. Something is being exchanged, not visually, not chemically, not materially, electromagnetically. The sun is about to light up the inside of that object in a way we have never seen. And whatever is inside Atlas, whatever is encoded in those double-layer plasma folds, whatever that interstellar crystallography is holding, is about to wake. And the strange part is, nobody on Earth can stop any of it. The telescopes are blind right now. The data streams are inconsistent, and the world is busy scrolling through notifications like nothing is happening. But somewhere in the black, Atlas is still there, still moving, still aligning, still humming in a frequency we can barely measure. And maybe this entire time, we were the ones being examined. So if this video made you think differently tonight, if it made you feel that little chill, not of fear, but of recognition, then make sure you subscribe right now. Because the next update might not just be news. It might be the moment where the universe finally answers back. And before you leave, drop your theory in the comments. Do you think Atlas is a mothership or a natural fragment? Or something we don't even have a word for yet? I'll see you in the next one, if the sky doesn't speak first.